Hello everybody, my name is Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic as usual is our in-house motorsport expert, the wonderful Chris Whitfield, and our sim racing commentator, Caitlin Penny Commentary, and you are, of course, listening to the Motorsport Recently Show. Guys, welcome along, and Caitlin, you said you had something to show us.
I did. Well, first of all, it's going to be a little story. So first of all, hi Chris, how are you, Chris?
Hello.
Chris
Hello.
Trading up in the world of real estate this week, courtesy of the technological advancements of chroma key. How are you enjoying your real estate, Chris?
Well, I'm all right.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah. So my little story is I went to Snetterton. First ever time going to Snetterton. I went for some Caterham racing. It was very, very good, very exciting. First time my partner had ever been to a race weekend, and they really enjoyed it as well. So big success. I've made a new club racing fan. But the thing I wanted to show you was this. Let me just reach over and hoist it onto the screen.
What are we looking? Okay, for the listeners at home and also the rest of us. That's
a
the rear
rear
fender
from
of
a Caterham.
Yeah.
It is indeed. So I'm sorry to the listeners who won't be able to hear this. They just heard me going, making some very sus noises. So the thing with Caterhams is that they lose their wheel covers really, really easily. You touch the back of a Caterham and the rear wheel cover just goes ping. Anyway, this is one that went ping. I went into the paddock and there was just a bunch of them lying around, and the marshals were like, well, the owners haven't come to collect these, so I guess you can just take them if you want. So we did. I made sure to find one with like a light on it, and it's got the Edge sponsorship underneath. The Edge sponsorship shows me that this is from a Caterham 270Z Road Sport specifically, because that was the series that was sponsored by Edge. But there was also 420Rs and 310Rs and Caterham, just plain Caterham Road Sports, and there was a mini racing championship which was mainly populated by juniors. That was really exciting. There were 3 different winners from the 3 different races, and you know what? Out of the 3 different mini races, all 3 of them got red flagged. I mean,
for some reason,
I guess
that doesn't surprise me.
Junior racing, but yeah, all 3 of them. Yeah, exactly. All 3 of them had a red flag in them. 2 of them were restarted, 1 wasn't. And then there was also the MG Owners Club. And Chris, I've got some wonderful pictures of a Maestro to send you. I'm sure you will appreciate that.
A Maestro?
Indeed. It was mainly ZRs. There were some MGFs. There were a couple of MGBs, a couple of MG Sprites, MG Midgets, sorry. And yeah, and 1 Maestro. Just 1 solitary Maestro running around. And I made sure Snowy got lots of pictures of that because I'm sure you would like to see that.
I mean, I do enjoy a good bit of British Leyland stroke Austin Rover in my motorsport.
Indeed. But yeah, that was my souvenir. A rear wheel cover from a Caterham 270R, complete with crash damage. It's actually really sharp. There's little bits of fiberglass sticking off it, so you have to be careful when you hold it. And it's also very muddy, so I might need to go wash my hands in a few minutes. But yeah, so that's that.
That's fair enough. I should say it. I know we've probably heard Chris speaking throughout this. It is hilarious. I hope the chroma key background translates over to the raw recordings that I edit, because we are currently seeing maybe a third of Chris's actual body because the rest of it has faded into the chroma key.
I'm the incredibly disappearing co-host.
Last week you were skiing down or 2 weeks ago, I should say, because we're doing this bi-weekly. 2 weeks ago you were skiing down a volcano, and this week you are partially disappearing. So that's very interesting. It's cool you snagged a souvenir, Caitlin. We'll talk about this later in the show, but I can relate to the desire to keep broken parts of cars as souvenirs, because one of the JDC Miller Porsche at Long Beach backed itself into the wall during that particular race, and the rear wing fell off. And the first thing I thought was, I want that. We'll of course get to that later. Yeah, I think that rear wing will probably be a great souvenir if somebody's able to hold on to that one. But yeah, we're not here to talk about just souvenirs and club racing and chroma key backgrounds. We are of course here to talk about motorsport. And last week, a story broke from the world of sports car racing that as soon as I saw it, I knew that was going to be the focus of this week's episode. News out of the WEC this week, McLaren have confirmed their entry into the FIA World Endurance Championship with an LMDh entry for 2027. There have been plenty of whisperings that McLaren would be returning to the top class of endurance racing, but that has now been confirmed. I think probably since the start of the converged regulations, there's been whisperings of this for a long time, but now we do have confirmation that will be the case. It's believed that McLaren will be partnering with Dallara as their chassis partner for the LMDh program. Of course, all LMDh cars are LMP2 based. That is, of course, if you select the LMDh formula as opposed to LMH, which is, of course, are bespoke cars. So that will be a Dallara that'll be a Dallara chassis for the McLaren effort. And it's also understood that the likely engine is going to be the twin-turbo V6 that's used in the McLaren Artura road and race cars. So that's interesting as well. Twin-turbo V6, very par for the course in terms of engines that are used in the converged prototype class, generally populated by turbocharged V8s and turbocharged V6s, with, of course, variations to that. For example, the Valkyrie and the Cadillac with naturally aspirated engines as well. And it's also believed that United Autosports are going to be the team running the prototype McLaren. They're, of course, currently responsible for running McLaren's GT3 program in the World Endurance Championship. Guys, we've got another hypercar manufacturer. What do we think of this?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, McLaren versus Ferrari is the rivalry that I grew up on. So when I heard that McLaren was coming into hypercar, I instantly thought about seeing them going side by side with the Ferrari at Le Mans. I think that is going to be absolutely fantastic to see. And as I keep saying, we are spoilt for choice when it comes to WEC hypercars nowadays. I remember the time not too long ago where it was Toyota versus Toyota, and that was it. And nowadays you've got so many different manufacturers, so many very different types of car, even within one class. And having more variety is just gonna be awesome. So yeah, this is really, really good news. United Autosports are a very competent team as well. They are going to prepare the car well. Dallara are a very competent chassis manufacturer. They're going to build a good chassis. This is going to be competitive. Even if it's not competitive in its first year, it's going to be competing with the likes of Ferrari, BMW, and Toyota at Le Mans in its second or third year. And it's going to make the hypercar class ever more successful.
Yes, Chris, your thoughts?
Now, my biggest question is, it's a McLaren. Will it be papaya orange?
I suspect it probably will. It seems that papaya is really the color of McLaren at the moment. I think for a few years we of course
unless it's their IndyCar entry.
Unless it's the IndyCar entry, in which it's a different shade of orange. That's a long running gag. I know the IndyCars are of course papaya now, but they weren't on one particular very famous occasion. There's a video about that on the YouTube channel. Look up the Fernando Alonso at the Indy 500 video on the Triple Crown Racing YouTube channel. That was covered in depth.
Yes.
But yes. Caitlin, you mentioned about being sport for choice in terms of manufacturers. I can tell you that this is the 16th manufacturer to sign up to the converged top class, although some of them have, of course, left. We've lost Isotta Fraschini as well as Glickenhaus. But overall, they're the 16th manufacturer, at least by my count, unless I have miscounted. I don't particularly trust my mathematical abilities sometimes. And they're also the 9th manufacturer to sign up to the LMDh category, with Ford and Genesis confirming their entries into that particular category.
And we'll get to
well.
Genesis later.
We'll get to Genesis later because there's also been a story coming out of Genesis as well. Not the band.
Are they getting the band back together?
Oh, I hope so. There must be some misunderstanding and some kind of mistake.
Very good. Speaking of getting the band back together, this is the first time that McLaren will be racing in a top class at Le Mans since 1998, because during the mid to late 90s, multiple categories could compete for top honors at the 24-hour race. A lot of my viewers will probably have seen the videos on sort of explaining prototype classes and GT classes. This will make this all the more confusing. So during the mid to late 90s, GT1 cars could compete against LMP cars for outright honors in the top class. And actually, in effect, because we now have the road-based Valkyrie in the top class joining all the specialized prototypes, what we really have is the closest thing we'll get these days to Le Mans in the mid-90s, which I think is quite interesting. So 1998 was the last time that McLaren ran in the top class at Le Mans. As we said before, we've obviously got the GT3 program now. So that was a McLaren F1 GTR Longtail. And the last time, McLaren have also a single win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That came in 1995 with the pre-Longtail version of the GTR in the hands of the Kokusai Kaihatsu racing team, driven by Yannick Dalmas, JJ Leto, and Masanori Sakiya. Bruce McLaren, not as a manufacturer, won the race as a driver in 1966 behind the wheel of a Ford GT, alongside fellow Kiwi Chris Amon. And yes, 1966 is the Le Mans from the movie.
Yeah, it's a team with Le Mans history. Admittedly, it was... I think... At the time, the GT1 cars weren't necessarily the fastest around a lap,
No.
but they could absolutely compete for the overall honours over a race distance. They had the straight line speed. They were quite reliable as well. And you mentioned the liveries before. I don't believe it was a papaya livery that McLaren ran when they won Le Mans. Wasn't that the Golf livery?
It was the black one.
It was the black one, yeah. But I'm sure I've seen a Golf liveried F1 from history as well.
Yes, it was I think it was the factory team that ran it, because I think McLaren actually had their own factory livery at that point.
The Golf livery definitely does exist, but the Golf livery car never actually won Le Mans.
No.
That 1995 win is McLaren's only overall win at Le Mans, and I think McLaren's only win in any class. Someone might have to check that one. I don't think
it did win in the. I believe, actually, it's got 38 wins in 120 starts.
I mean at Le Mans. So the F1 GTR is the only McLaren that has ever won any class at Le Mans. So as a GT car, that car was relatively successful across a wide variety of championships and categories, but only at Le Mans it won only a single time, and claiming McLaren's only ever win at Le Mans.
It was also at 95, apparently it was the fastest car down the Mulsanne Straight, measuring a speed of 174.605 miles an hour, which was faster than the cars that swept the front row, which were the two WM chassis that ran in the LMP class.
Yeah, so as we said, they, at least on straight line speed, the GT cars could compete with the top level prototypes. Actually, funnily enough, the same V12, so a very close relative of the V12 that was in the McLaren F1, actually won the race again in 1999 in the back of the BMW LMP car.
Also, if you can believe it, there's actually an F1 connection to that old McLaren as well.
Aside from the fact it's called an F1.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
But also, when BMW took that program over, it was actually partially run by Williams during that time.
Was it really?
When it ran in the FIA GT series in the FINA sponsored car. Because
that was presumably before Williams took the BMW factory program in Formula One, wasn't it?
Yes, they ran from 1997 to 1998 with the BMW Motorsport banner.
Yeah.
And they left to build the V12 LMR and V12 LM.
And that's what I was saying before. So that V12, I'm fairly certain. I think it was the S70 V12 that was used, and I think they weren't the exact same.
The S70-2.
The S70-2, that was the one in the back of the F1. It wasn't the one in the back of the BMW V12 car that won in '99, is my understanding. I think they were two slightly different engines.
Actually, the one that ran in the LMR was the S70-3.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Which it also shared with the previous V12 LM and the BMW X5 LM concept car.
No. Oh, that is unbelievable.
They shoehorned that into a BMW X5 SUV.
Yeah, no, I've heard of this concept car, actually. Never went into production. I think the largest engine that the X5 had in production was a 4.8 litre V8, I seem to remember. Anyway, the reason that we've kind of got onto engines, and this is kind of the sort of the dangerous position that I ran, is that while researching for this McLaren story, I almost ended up in a bit of a click hole. So initially going in, because I didn't quite remember the history off the top of my head, I initially had a hypothesis that I thought the McLaren F1 had been the last V12 car to win Le Mans outright, and boy was I proven wrong, because of course we then had the BMW that won in 1999, as we've just discussed, but also Audi and Peugeot, and this is how crazy the early 2000s were in terms of engines, and I think you may have in some respect Ferdinand Piëch to thank for that, with what he was doing at the Volkswagen Group at the time. You had Audis and Peugeots at Le Mans running diesel V12s, which make the turbocharged units that we've got these days at Le Mans seem a little bit tame, but yeah, absolutely crazy engines. So obviously the F1 wasn't the last V12 car to win at Le Mans outright. It was I think it was the second last petrol V12 to win Le Mans outright. But I think it was Peugeot that won for the final time with a V12 diesel in I think, what year was this? It would have been 2009, I want to say. I could be wrung. What year did Peugeot
2009,
win Le Mans?
yes.
So 2009, clearly I studied well for this.
With the other guys, as I call them, which when they won in 2009, it was the 9 car, the third factory entry, with Marc Genet, Alexander Wurz, and Earth's own David Brabham. I love a history tangent when it comes to racing. What I will say, though, is, I mean, we have, of course, mentioned that the F1 GTR was relatively successful in a number of things, and McLaren, of course, won Le Mans in 95. But if you look at McLaren's racing exports, sports car racing isn't
really what they're known for. I've been trying to find sort of, I mean, obviously McLaren has such a huge presence and so much success when it comes to open wheel racing, particularly in Formula One, as we know. But when it comes to sports car racing, they don't really have the same level of success as manufacturers like Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, BMW. So I was looking through their sort of list of achievements, and what I could find was their Le Mans 95 win, as well as the other wins that the GTR had during its competitive lifespan. The MP4, so the MP4 12C was their first GT3 car, but I couldn't really find anything notable that car actually won. The first major success that McLaren had as a GT3 manufacturer was the 2016 Bathurst 12-hour win with the 650S GT3. They also won the GT4 class championship in the British GT Championship with the Artura GT4 in 2024. And they also won the Asian Le Mans Series GT Championship, the GT category, of course, in 2022 with the 650. With the 720 GTS. But aside from that, I haven't really found too much in the way of huge sports car racing achievements for McLaren. So really, I think this program, and of course their GT3 program in the WEC, will really be their first major chance at winning some major events. Chris, is there anything that you can think of that McLaren has won in the way of sports cars off the top of your head?
Not really. Also, the driver lineup for that aforementioned Bathurst victory was, of course, Alvaro Parente, Jono Webb, and one man of culture, Shane van Gisbergen.
Yeah, no, I think the reason we are saying Shane van Gisbergen is a man of culture is he's recently taken delivery of I want to say FB Mazda RX-7, which Chris was very happy about.
Well, no, he had that FB before. He just on his Instagram post he actually got some mods to it.
Yes, there you go. But yeah, so
let me tell you that this thing looks. I'm looking at it now. It looks gorgeous.
Anyway, so I think McLaren's move into the top class at Le Mans and the top class in the WEC. We're yet to hear if there's going to be an IMSA entry, but I suspect that there probably might be. Probably. In some respect. With Zach Brown at the helm, I'm sure there probably will be.
Yeah. Plus, it's also IMSA has a I think McLaren is actually a partner manufacturer. So with IMSA, so that means that it probably will have an entry.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. But I'd say this move, it sort of allows McLaren to extend its racing empire under the stewardship of Zach Brown. I think while Zach Brown has been in charge of things, they've really made moves across motorsport, because Zach Brown, realistically, with the combined efforts of United Autosports and his stewardship of McLaren, really has a finger in every single pie across motor racing. I think there's in most major racing series now, there is at least some connection to Zach Brown. So McLaren, of course, they sort of brought themselves back to the front in Formula One. In the first episode of this rebooted version of the podcast, we talked at length about McLaren taking full control of what once was Schmidt-Peterson Motorsport for it to become McLaren Racing in its entirety. They've, of course, made forays into Formula E and are doing reasonably well there. Zach Brown really wants to conquer the entire world of motor racing. And it occurred to me yesterday that because Zach Brown, as the McLaren Racing CEO, now has his finger in so many pies, he has the opportunity to win the Triple Crown as the CEO of McLaren Racing because all the pieces are there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
What do we think of Zach Brown's stewardship of McLaren? Do we have anything to say on that?
He's an interesting figure. On one hand, he is a racer. He's very committed to racing. On the other hand, he is a businessman with a great eye for a deal. I don't entirely agree with everything that he does. Certainly left a bad taste in my mouth last year at the Miami Grand Prix when he allowed Donald Trump to prance around the McLaren paddock. So I don't agree with everything that he does, but I do have to agree that he is a racer and a businessman. And I think that while he may not be responsible for 100% of McLaren's recent success, he is a source of ambition for the team. And I think that's very, very important for them. So, as whatever you think about him, I do think that he's good at his job.
I agree. The whole contract thing, though, with Alex Palou kind of gave me a little bit of... and how he treats his other drivers. Like, for instance, like the guys under contract, like Teo Porcher and Callum Islet, and basically how he treated the drivers of the number 6 entry, and David Malukas as well. Like, it left a bad taste in my mouth. But at the same time, he's more than that. He's really good for Formula One. I think we need a character like that to offset the current administration at the FIA. But him going to the World Endurance Championship, I think is a win. I think it's a boon to the series, and as if they need it anymore. Like, we're gonna get to a point, I think, where we're going to have to start sending people home after...
I think that was discussed a little bit on the Triple Crown Racing Discord server, where somebody mentioned that the WEC grid is now getting too crowded because we've got this many manufacturers on the grid, to the point where the LMP2 and GT3 categories might start suffering because we've got that much presence.
But it, like, counterpoint to that, though, we've still got the Asian Le Mans series, we still got the European Le Mans series, and we still have IMSA. If the WEC grid is oversubscribed, which honestly is a good problem to have, if we oversubscribe those series will gladly take them, especially like the LMP2s, GT3s, like that formula is working.
Yeah.
Especially in the ELMS. I think personally that this is a good time to be a fan of sports car racing, to be honest. This is a great time. It's gone from strength to strength, and contemplating whether I should mention the ELMS now.
Depends what in the ELMS. What have you got to say on that front?
Because there was a pretty good little race that happened in Barcelona. The 4-hour race. I'm just gonna give you the winners because I think you all need to watch this race live, or not live, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'll go back in time and watch it.
Yes.
We're recording on Thursday, by the way. So even though we've sort of time traveled for everybody else, we are unfortunately too far ahead in the future to watch that race.
Yes. Yeah, the winners in the overall were the number 83 AF Corsa Orica for Francois Perotto, Alessia Rivera, and Matthew Vaxiviere, who had honestly one of the best strategies out there to beat the actual pro entry in LMP2. And this actually, because it actually is the first time a Pro-Am car has won. I believe it's actually the second time a Pro-Am car has actually won overall. In the ELMS, the actual LMP2 winner, like the pro class, was Matthew Jobert, Daniel Hunkadilla, and one Jamie Chadwick.
Really?
Yeah, one Jamie Chadwick, who I'm thinking is probably going to be part of the new Genesis program in either WEC or IMSA in the EDEC Sport Orca, number 18, which is, I believe, affiliated with the Genesis people. Yeah, it's the first time she almost became the first woman to win overall in a ELMS in an ACO sanctioned race, which is very impressive unto itself. Plus, we all know Jamie Chadwick is one of the best female drivers in the sport. I think we all can agree on that.
I think she's also going to Le Mans this year, is she not?
She is. She is with EDEC. Yes.
And I think she's also, I think, the only female driver in LMP2, unless more entries have been confirmed that I don't know about.
In LMP2, yes.
Right, yeah.
I
No, in
believe,
LMP2,
yes.
yeah, she is. I know that much. But,
okay,
yeah,
so LMP3, I'm just going to go through the class winners.
Yeah.
Because there's two more classes. Was the number 17 CLX Motorsport entry of Adrian Clomenil, Theodore Jensen, and Paul Lancher. And the one I've been really looking forward to talking about, the LMGT3 winner. Now, would you like to make a guess as to who the driver was?
I have literally no idea.
The team
I
was.
didn't see it. Go ahead and tell us.
It is the Dames, the Iron Dames, won LMGT3 a day after Marta Garcia suffered a massive crash in the Le Mans Cup race the day before, and thankfully she seems to be doing much better now. I'm not sure if she's been released from hospital, but we all send our thoughts toward her on a speedy recovery. And the LMGT3 winning drivers, of course, Sarah Bovey, Michelle Gatting, and Celia Martin, who I believe this is actually her very first victory in professional in the big class for the ELMS.
There you go. McLaren news featuring European Le Mans Series cameo. But to cap off the McLaren thing, you mentioned before that the oversubscription problem is a good problem to have. That's been said many times by both fans and commentators alike. And I think you also said something that I think resonates with all sports car fans, and that it is a great time to be a sports car fan. We've got a bit of a McLaren focus at the moment, which gives us the perfect opportunity to segue into Formula One. There was, of course, between the last episode of this show and this episode, a rather boring race at Suzuka. That was won in a classic Max. I mean, Max Verstappen did very well to win that race, becoming the third different driver to win a Grand Prix this year and the fourth different driver to win a race of any kind this year in Formula One. But there was, of course, a more exciting race from Bahrain, which was won by Oscar Piastri for McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, look, I always say there is no such thing as a boring Grand Prix. Japan may not have been an absolute banger, but it still had its merit. Max Verstappen, absolutely clinical drive, definitely driver of the day there. But I tell you what, it did make Bahrain better. Bahrain was awesome from a strategic point of view. There were a lot of talking. Yeah. There were a lot of talking points with George Russell having his issues, his technical issues, and somehow still holding off Lando Norris for second. I was very impressed by Pierre Gasly. I tell you what, Alpine as a team really took a step forwards in that race.
Yeah, let's give a call also to Jack Doohan.
Yeah. So close to the points.
He should have gotten that point. And it also would have silenced the many critics and Flavio that Jack Doohan could actually drive an F1 car.
it kind of seems to have done just that. It was announced very recently that Alpine had made a decision on Jack Doohan, and they have decided to keep him for at least the next few rounds. It's looking more likely that his seat will be safe, and I've actually heard murmurings, at least, that Franco Colapinto may end up parting ways with Alpine. So I would say that Jack Doohan's seat is safe for the time being, at least. And I think that is the right thing, because I don't think you can judge a driver on 5 Grand Prix. I do think Gasly was absolutely the class of the field in Bahrain. I think he was probably driver of the day, in my opinion. He looked genuinely competitive, not just as the head of the midfield, but he was 4th on the grid in an Alpine that hadn't yet scored a point in the championship. That is insane.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Like, he was 4th on the grid.
Was.
On merit, on pace.
Alpine's
in an Alpine.
Alpine's first points of the year, and it's a P7. You know, this reminded me of Giancarlo Fisichella at Spa all those years ago. It was a similar kind of performance. And an overlooked one as well, because everyone's going, yeah, Oscar, what a drive. And yeah, okay, Oscar got a Grand Slam. It was pretty impressive. But he's in the fastest car in the sport, and I'm afraid to say Lando kind of blew it. So I think the standout drive, in my personal opinion, was Pierre Gasly in this one. And Alpine as a whole were definitely much more competitive at Bahrain than at Suzuka and any of the other rounds of the season so far.
Yeah. Now, I'd also like to give another honorable mention to Haas.
Yeah.
First, Esteban Ocon with an 8th, and Ollie Behrman with the final point. Like, they really stepped up from the first couple Grand Prix, and I think they might challenge for a few more points toward the end of the season.
I mean, you wait till we get to talking about the next Grand Prix that's coming up, but. Yeah, I mean, don't forget Oliver Behrman with his P10. He came from the very back of the grid, P20. Yeah. So he made up 10 positions. You know, he is a rookie in his 7th Grand Prix, and he's going from P20 to P10 in a Haas. You know, the guy just doesn't know when he's beaten, does he? He doesn't know when to give up.
I might add.
Absolutely,
on merit,
absolutely.
I might add.
You know,
he was actually my pick for driver of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why. It was a great drive. Maybe kind of messed up qualifying a little bit, but it happens to everyone. And unlike some people, he didn't give up. He kept on pushing and got a point out of it. So yeah, great job from both Esteban and Oliver, who were both awesome at China as well. Great drives.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to talk about race strategy for a second, though, because that was a major talking point in this race. I think it was really interesting to see after the safety car came out and everybody made their pit stops, and they showed the timing tower. The diversity of tire choices across the grid was unbelievable to see. I think it was quite interesting because the hard tire was, quite frankly, completely useless. Well, I mean, at least compared to the mediums, I thought it was also unbelievable that George Russell was able to somehow make that soft tire last till the end of the race on an audacious strategy call, as he said himself,
with his car falling apart.
Yeah, yes. What was wrong with his car again?
So he was complaining about all sorts of things, really. He was complaining about there was a comms issue, there was a timing issue where they couldn't tell him when he could use the DRS. There were all, I think he had some gear issues as well. His car was holding on by a thread there. And you mentioned the soft tire that he was on. That was very much the exception. I remember the same as you, looking at the timing tower and thinking, the top 3 are all on different tyre compounds. Like, when does that ever happen? But you got to remember, some people kind of had their hands tied, because if you start on the medium tyres and then the safety car comes out and you think, I've got to make a pit stop, you then have a choice of either going on the hard tyre, which clearly does not work, going on the medium tyres again, which would require you to make another pit stop, and no one wants that, or going on the soft tyres, which are going to be great initially, but probably aren't going to last. So that's why some people ended up on the hard tyres, despite knowing full well they weren't going to work. Lewis Hamilton was one of those, and somehow still ended up fifth. He actually had quite a promising drive. But yeah, George Russell, another standout performance, because not only was his car handling absolutely terribly and, seemingly breaking something else every lap, but he was hanging on tyres that even he admitted were not likely to make it to the end in one piece, and somehow still managed to fend off the flying Lando Norris. So amazing drive from George Russell, and just like Oliver Behrman, just does not know when he's beaten.
Absolutely.
Also,
you did mention there for a second. Chris,
if I could just make another observation here, the battle that took place between Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda made for great viewing. Made for excellent viewing, and it's good to see that Yuki's getting used to the car, and I'm glad he actually was able to get points in his second Grand Prix with the team, and I really hope that this kind of trend continues for Yuki, because the kid's good.
He wasn't that far off Max in the race, actually.
He was beating him at some. He was beating him before that safety car.
Overall, it was still a considerable margin, but he was closer than the second driver tends to be, at least in the last couple of years, since Sergio Perez fell off massively.
I will say, though, speaking of that safety car, that did not need to be a safety car. A virtual safety car would have done just fine.
I think I have to agree with Martin Brundle and David Croft on this front. I think that did need a safety car, because debris is a serious problem that needs to be dealt with when it happens. We saw this last year, actually. I know they didn't deploy a virtual safety car, but at I think it was Qatar with that piece of debris on the front straight that they did nothing about. But I think safety needs to be the paramount concern, and if they have to go full safety car to allow marshals to go onto the track and retrieve debris safely, I'm all for it. So I think that the safety car was actually the correct call, and it did make the race a bit more interesting as well. So I think that was the right move.
Well, if they have to, then they have to, but the virtual safety car was brought in specifically for I guess the virtual safety car is mainly used when a car breaks down and you can very quickly move it out of the way, like if it's not stuck in gear or whatever. But moments of sweeping up debris like that were kind of, from my point of view, the reason they brought in the virtual safety car in the first place. And if they have to go full safety car, then they go full safety car. But I was surprised to see that, to be honest.
I think
it felt like a NASCAR caution.
The thing is, I think what you have to remember is that even under virtual safety car conditions, the cars are still going around really, really fast. And if I was a marshal, I don't think I'd feel comfortable going out onto a track knowing that there is potentially a car coming at those types of speeds. Because if you see them in real, the TV makes it look slow. But if you're standing by the track in real life and you see cars going around on a safety car, on the virtual safety car, they're still going around really quickly. I do want to talk about Oscar Piastri for a moment. Of course, the winner of this Grand Prix, which he was once again showing off the merits of the Kimi Räikkönen school of emotional expression after that race victory. But great drive from him. It would have been nice to see him cross the line on the big screen. F1 broadcasters, please do better on that front. That wasn't good enough. That needed to be.
What was that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was really bad.
Like, what was that? You're showing the race winner in a very small box, showing the race winner in an onboard on the timing tower instead of showing the battle for second behind them.
It should have been the other way around. It should have been the other way around. They should have had. They always show the winner crossing the line on the broadcast. It's just the done thing. Even when a few years ago Lewis Hamilton would dominate the entire race, you wouldn't see him throughout the whole broadcast. You would see him cross the line on the big screen. But anyway, I don't want to just rip into the broadcasters. There were a number of issues with that over the race.
I think
throughout the Grand Prix.
I quote the headache-inducing Crofty, because this line seems kind of prescient here, but what has happened? We need to know!
Yes. It was almost disrespectful, to be honest. Like, sorry. It really did feel like winning the race is the most important thing that you can do. So, yeah, the battle of the second was great, but we could very easily have had that in a small box. Give the winner his time in the sun. That was a bit kind of rude. Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in.
No, it's okay. But yeah, so broadcast issues aside, Oscar Piastri has had an absolutely stellar start to the year. Is he the new top dog at McLaren? I think is Zach Brown going to have more issues dealing with their two drivers? Because keep in mind, Oscar Piastri's won 2 races, Lando Norris has won 1.
Yeah.
One Pablo Montoya. I won't start that again. That joke was
Formula
done to death a number of
year.
years.
If you can win Formula 1 year, yes.
So yeah, is he the new guy at McLaren? Is he in the championship conversation? Are we possibly going to be looking back at this at the end of the year when we all predicted Lando Norris to be the main contender? Are we going to be looking back and saying, well, Oscar Piastri was actually the man?
Well, when you're in a championship fight like this, the tension never goes away. It keeps ramping up. They keep on applying the thumb screws. And I mentioned this earlier, but Lando really threw it away, in my opinion. I think he made way too many mistakes. He should absolutely have had that second position, but he was just caught lacking too many times. And I'm not just talking about qualifying. There were times in the race, there was one point where he went to pass someone and he overshot it and they got back through again. And then he never got through again. And that is not what you don't need to do those things in the fastest car. He could absolutely have had at least second position then, and he would have had a bigger championship lead. It's the same as Sao Paulo last year when he was under pressure to keep the championship fight alive, and he didn't. And
didn't he also get a penalty
he did.
During this Grand Prix?
Yeah, he went over his grid box at the start of the race, and he said, I didn't know I was over the grid box. But on the replay, you can see him creeping forward to try to maximize his advantage on the grid box. And again, he did not need to do that. That was completely unnecessary. And quite rightfully, he ended up being given a penalty for it. So, look, Lando Norris is...
And then later on... Sorry. And then later on, he had to give a position back because he overtook Lewis, I believe, just after that safety car outside of track limits.
Yeah, I think he did, didn't he?
He also made a number of mistakes while chasing George Russell as well. He locked up going into the first corner, which basically killed off any chance that he would have had to overtake him.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about just now. Don't get me wrong, Lando Norris is one of the fastest drivers in the sport. He tends to be faster than Piastri over a lap, although Piastri has got a few pole positions recently. But Lando does tend to be a little bit quicker. But you mentioned how Oscar is chilled out. He's, Kimi Räikkönen style. Well, that's what I do, that's the kind of attitude you need in order to be able to win championships that are as close as this one. I really think that while Lando Norris is probably still the favourite for the championship, it is not the walkover that we kind of thought it would be before. And I really do think, for the first time, I'm really starting to admit and see that Oscar Piastri stands a really, really good chance. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this fight develops. But, in terms of your question, is he the new top dog at McLaren? No, I think they're about 50-50 right now, and that's what makes this fight so intriguing. There is no top dog. But I do think that he is very much in the championship fight.
That's actually part of the reason why I like Zach, because he's like he doesn't say like there's one number one driver and a number two driver. They're equal in terms of like they're allowed to race each other.
And it shows.
Yeah. Like, this is why I actually respect Zach Brown a lot more, because he actually allows his two drivers to race at any given time. Like, race each other if needed.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Did we mention the Nico Hulkenberg disqualification already?
We did,
but it doesn't really matter. He wasn't going to score any points.
Yeah, he was, like 19th? Or he was like 18th, but yeah, it was for those that don't know, he was excluded from the final classifications due to the plank under the car being worn too much. Or as I call it, the Schumacher plank.
Yes, for 95 Belgium.
94.
It's the same thing, 94, yeah. It's the same thing that got Lewis Hamilton disqualified in China. It's very simple, really. The teams want to run the cars as low as they possibly can, especially nowadays with the ground effects. But if you run them too low, it wears the plank too much, and the FIA looks at that and they're like, naughty, naughty, you've been running your car too low, and they disqualify you. So it's a simple case of teams trying to push the limit and sometimes going just a little bit over.
Yeah. I think we should round off, because we're getting on a little bit now. We've got plenty of other things to talk about. We should probably round off with some predictions. So, Caitlin, do you want to go first for this one? This is for Jeddah, by the way.
Yes, so we're going to do our predictions for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Because it is Saudi, I am predicting absolute chaos. I feel a crazy race coming. And that is reflected in my predictions. Obviously, on Blue Sky, I've been posting my top 5 predictions for every race. And my 5th place prediction for this race is Oliver Bearman. Now,
wow, that's bold.
I know that is bold, but Oliver Bearman has been on a real high recently. He was an absolute star in China. He was an absolute star in Bahrain, coming from 20th to 10th place on the grid. If a crazy result is going to happen anywhere, it's going to happen at Jeddah, especially for Oliver Bearman, because this is a track where last year he was on pole position in Formula 2. He was, of course, unexpectedly called up last minute to replace Carlos Sainz due to his appendicitis, and he scored points on his debut in Formula 1. This is a track where Bearman goes really, really well. And, I mean, do I actually think he's going to be in the top 5? Probably not, but Formula 1 is unpredictable, so it's my best guess, really. The thing is, if it happens, we're all going to look back at this and be like, wow! So I'm locking it in now, Oliver Bearman, P5. In P4, I've gone for Max Verstappen. I think the Red Bull, it struggled in Bahrain, and I can see them having another kind of like tough race weekend. So I've still predicted him in the top 5, but not on the podium. 3rd place, I've gone for George Russell. He's been very, very good recently. And, you know, while Antonelli's still getting up to speed, Russell is very much leading the Mercedes team. Obviously, that leaves the 2 McLarens for a 1-2. And I've put Norris ahead of Piastri. So I'm predicting a Lando Norris win, followed by Piastri, Russell, Verstappen, and Bearman.
Wow, that's very bold. Chris, do you want me to go first, or have you got predictions that you're desperate to get out the door? All right, let's hear them.
And like here it is in sort of a to the tune of "Hello Mutta, Hello Fada" from Alan Sherman. Piastri, Norris.
Is that it?
What?
We'll edit this.
You're known for making too many predictions. Now you've not made enough.
Piastri, Norris, Russell, Hamilton. Then in 5th place, Max Verstappen. Yes.
There we go. That was hilarious, Chris.
And
No one knew where that was going, and that made it so much better.
You really are a complete wild card, Chris Whitfield. That's how I should. So, okay, at the top of the show, I want to start introducing you guys properly, because I realized that when we first started doing this rebooted show, I kind of just said, right, here's me and here's two other people, here's a racing podcast. But really what we need to be saying is our sim racing commentator, Caitlin Penny, and our complete wild card, the wonderful Chris Whitfield. Okay, that was so ridiculous. I've almost actually forgotten what I was going to predict. But okay, right. So I think I'm going to say Kimi Antonelli is going to be fifth. Charles Leclerc is going to be fourth. I think you're onto something with George Russell in third position, Caitlin. I think that is a solid shout. So I think I'm going to go with the same on that front. I was thinking about deploying my newfound supernatural abilities of making incorrect predictions to sway the results of races, because whatever I say won't happen. But I think I think you're also right. I think Lando Norris is going to win this race, followed by Oscar Piastri. But given the reliability of my predictions, that may not happen at all. And I think that's a good way to cap off Formula One. We need to make progress quickly through our subsequent series, because there's still quite a bit to talk about. We might skip over some stuff as well and leave it for next week. We'll see how we go.
Let's go to Long Beach.
We're going to Long Beach. We're crossing the pond. We had, of course, the NTT IndyCar Series and the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship racing on the streets of Long Beach. And in IndyCar, it was a stellar drive from Kyle Kirkwood to stay ahead of a hard-charging Alex Palou to win the Long Beach Grand Prix. The race essentially came down to Kyle Kirkwood, the Andretti driver, coming out of the pit lane on cold tyres and having to hold off probably one of the most dominant drivers in recent history in IndyCar, Alex Palou. He was on already warm tires, excuse me, and I'm amazed that Kirkwood was able to hold on. That was an absolutely fantastic drive on the streets of Long Beach. Not the only storyline, of course. Chris, do you want to quickly run us through the rest of that?
Yeah, there are two other storylines. One being Stingray Robb, who led a total of 12 laps and actually scored his first since Gateway last year, when he was driving for Foyt, and he scored his career-tying best finish of 9th on an alternate pit strategy, which was the way that the strategy plays out at Long Beach is actually one of the most interesting things about racing at Long Beach. Is just how the strategies tend to work out at any given time, and basically that's where you see some of the interesting characters like a Kyle Kirkwood, like Christian Lundgaard, who was third, or Felix Rosenqvist, I just realized I forgot to put an E in Rosenqvist's name, in the show notes. And basically this is where the interesting characters, tend to be up near the sharp end of the field. Also, it should be noted that, one of the biggest movers was, of all people, Santino Ferrucci, who started last, 27th, and actually made his way up to 11th. Which means that the strategy they've been using is working out quite well. On the flip side, Joseph Newgarden had a seemingly dolorous afternoon when his seatbelts disconnected twice, much like Will Power last year in the finale at Nashville, losing him 2 laps and giving him one of his very few last place finishes in IndyCar. And this he was having a pretty rough weekend to start with. Rough week, because he's also been getting backlash on social media for his visit to the White House this week, but we'll gloss over that for the time being. But this was a very un-Newgarden-like drive from him, and I think there's some problems within the two team as far as like getting in terms of strategy and getting anything right, because they're usually up near the front, as we all know, and I think ever since the hybrid era started, they've been pretty much struggling on road and street courses, and it's gonna be interesting coming to Indy. Like going to Barber and Indianapolis within the next few weeks, and seeing just what happens with the number 2 Penske team. And the seatbelts disconnecting twice. That's
not good.
That doesn't sit right with me. I think there might be. I'm not sure what's happening there, but they should not be making mistakes like that.
No, especially not with a safety device. That's not good.
Absolutely.
In any case, though, Alex Palou is still absolutely demolishing everybody in the IndyCar series at the moment. Including, of course, Joseph Newgarden, who sits a bit further down the order in 10th place. Best finish for Newgarden this year, being a 3rd place, following that up with a 13th at Thermal and 27th at Long Beach. So not a great weekend for him. But yeah, Alex Palou still leads the championship. It's 142 points to Kyle Kirkwood's 108 points. That race, of course, helping Kirkwood's championship campaign as well. Or as
the headlines, I believe from the LA Times, called him Kirkwood.
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 That sounds like the type of typo that I'd make.
For the second straight year, it should be pointed out.
No, you're joking. That's unbelievable. Anyway, IndyCar
and
wasn't
also I have to also give Kyle Kirkwood the thumbs up once again, because
very good.
And I think IndyCar fans know what that means.
Yes, they do.
Great
IndyCar
drive.
wasn't the only series that raced at Long Beach over the weekend. We, of course, had the 3rd round of the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, and oh my goodness me, we mentioned Palou as the dominant driver. In IMSA right now, Porsche is the dominant team. So the number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsport car of Nick Tandy and Felipe Nasr continue their perfect run this year, making it 3 wins out of 3 in the IMSA series this year, taking the victory at Long Beach with a 1-2 finish as well. BMW started on the front row. They actually had a front row lockout with the M Hybrid V8, but unfortunately couldn't make it stick throughout the race. I think they tried to split the strategy and it didn't really work, and I just don't think they were as competitive as Porsche.
Yeah, that pit strategy continues to baffle me. Like, this is the 3rd straight race now that BMW remembers that they're run by RLL in terms of strategy. Because I don't know what's going on, but they're just bottling what should be easy victories. And they're just, like, that full course yellow, of course, didn't help. But, yeah, like, I'm just beside myself. Like, they should have won this race. They should have, but of course they didn't. Like, I don't know what's going on at Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, but they're just throwing these races away. Like, I don't understand what's going on at the on the pit box.
And it seems that the car is there or thereabouts now. Maybe not quite on the same level as the 963, but definitely there now.
3 straight poles to start the year.
So it's fast. It's
fast, but the problem is Penske just executes it better, and also, like, I don't think there's been a BOP change since Daytona, if I remember correctly, but, I'm just not really pleased with Rahal Letterman Lanigan's strategy at the minute, because I'm sorry, but that's just, you can't throw away 3 in a row. You just can't.
Well, I don't think Daytona was really a strategy issue. That was the nose cone basically falling off. So Nick Tandy and Felipe Inazza continued their perfect run, but they weren't the only ones that continued a perfect run, because Lawrence Vantour is the endurance driver for the number 7, but for this weekend he was driving Rexy in its one-off GTD outing alongside Johnny Edgar, and they won as well. So not only does Rexy win again in 2025, Lawrence Vantour across classes makes it 3 out of 3. So fantastic performance from the two of those drivers.
Gold braces and all.
Gold braces. Well, actually, are the braces still on the car, or have they taken them off? I didn't pay attention.
The braces were actually painted gold.
Oh yeah,
with
nice.
the 2 gold teeth. I love I love how they can just play with that. That's just great.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a bit of sense of humor in motor racing. But brilliant performance from Rexy at that race. They weren't the only ones that put on a stellar performance in GTD. There was of course from another one-off entry, and that was is it DXDT Corvette? No, I can't remember now. Yeah,
that car is actually doing
Corvette.
the Sprint Championship.
Yes. I was tossing up between Dex Imaging and DXDT. I don't know why. I think similar sponsor names. But yes, Robert Wickens returned in, of course, that car to a top flight series alongside Tommy Milner. And while they didn't quite snag the result that they would have wanted to, they were running in P5, I believe it was, before they were given a mechanical black flag, because in the during the overtake that they made to get into P5, they made contact with one of the Turner BMWs.
The Turner
BMW, excuse me. And it tore a part of the rear bumper off, which then resulted in a mechanical black flag, but they've been really fast throughout the day and quite competitive up to that point. So while they didn't quite get the result, I think it's still a very, very respectable performance from that team.
Yeah.
And it was quite an entertaining race. So another great race for IMSA as well. Also, I should worth noting, good performance from Vassar Sullivan Lexus with a 2-3 finish. The number 12 car of the number 12
Thompson.
Parker Thompson, excuse me, and Jack Hawksworth finishing ahead of the 89, another one-off entry of Frankie Montecalvo and Aaron Telitz, rounding off the GTD. Not the only racing out of America that weekend. We had some Formula E action from Miami, which I'll go through very quickly. So this was the Formula E series went to Homestead Miami Speedway, believe it or not, racing on the effectively Miami's Roval, if that makes sense. And it was a controversy-filled one, and quite an exciting race as well, because Pascal Wehrlein won that particular race for Tag Heuer Porsche after several drivers, including Norman Nato, who crossed the line first on the road, along with Oliver Rowland, who crossed the line third, were penalized due to being unable to use their required final attack mode, so the last attack mode that they needed to take of the race, due to a lengthy red flag that was caused with only 4 laps to go, if I remember off the top of my head, was the lap count, due to a crash involving Jake Hughes, Maxi Gunter, and Mitch Evans, which meant that there wasn't enough time left in the race for many drivers to use their attack mode. So Norman Nato crossing first on the road, but being demoted to 6th place, I seem to remember. So Pascal Wehrlein winning at Homestead Miami. It's been a good couple of weeks for Pascal. His Le Mans drive with Porsche confirmed, and now a victory in Formula E for the very same manufacturer. In second place, it was a good race for Lucas Di Grassi on the podium for Lola Yamaha Apt, who hasn't been the most competitive team as of late, but really, really good result for Lucas di Grassi, and it was a disappointing result for Antonio. Well, a disappointing result for him. I don't think anybody would really be that disappointed with the third place, but disappointed Antonio Felix da Costa finished third after being in the fight alongside his Porsche teammate throughout the day, and it was quite an entertaining race from Homestead Miami. It was small cars on a very, very wide track, which I think Formula One could maybe learn a thing or two about, because Formula E cars are, of course, very small these days. And in the championship, Oliver Rowland maintains his championship lead ahead of Antonio Felix da Costa. And that's basically Formula E, unless anybody has anything to say about that. I think it's a good series this year, and I was thoroughly entertained by Miami, even though there was a bit of controversy.
I hate that rule.
Yeah, I think it's unfair. Like, the attack mode is there to give the drivers an advantage. If they don't use that advantage, why would you penalize them? Like, I get that you could technically save energy by not using the attack mode, but, like, surely that does not... like, why would you... You know, that's like... I don't know, that's like Formula One penalizing people for not using DRS. Like, who cares?
Well, I think in Formula E, because it's effectively in many races the replacement for an actual pit stop, what they did would be like not doing a compulsory pit stop. That's how it's regarded within the Formula E rules.
I still remember when Formula E started and they actually did pit stops by getting out of one chassis and getting into another.
I remember that too.
And then driving off.
Well, funnily enough, earlier in the year when Formula E raced at Jeddah, they did a charge stop. So they had almost like a refueling rig type setup, except it was a fast charger. So they plugged it in, and it basically charges the car really quickly, and they can go back out again. They didn't do pit stops at Miami, but certainly strategy playing a huge role in it. And I think the reason it plays obviously a role in the strategy is the drivers have to go quite far offline to claim the attack mode, so they lose time in doing so. So if you don't, they all took their attack mode. Everybody, of course, they took their final attack mode, but they weren't able to use all of it because there wasn't enough time left in the race. And basically what happens then was they tried to run long and use their attack mode towards the end of the race, but were completely caught out by the red flag. Yeah. And that's why that happened. But yeah. So that was Homestead Miami Formula E. Does anyone have anything more to say about that before we move on to our
do not.
Next segment?
Yep.
Which is now time for what?
Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering now. TM. Bing.
Bing.
Let's get a jingle for that, proper jingle for the next episode of the show. I think it's about time on episode 12 of the Motorsport Recently Show.
If you remind me in like a week, I'll do it, okay?
Okay, yeah, right, done.
Gotcha.
News out of the world of sports cars, as if we haven't had enough of that already, but we've got more for you. So Genesis has revealed the livery for the GMR 001 LMDh car.
Not just the livery, it should be noted. They unveiled the entire car.
I think it was only a rendering of the car, though, unless they actually had the car. Oh, the car was there.
No, it's actually at the New York Auto Show.
Wow,
it's the full scale, prototype.
Yeah, wow, that's I didn't know that the prototype was actually a physical thing that you could go and see. I just thought the livery. So the car's been revealed now. That's fantastic.
It is, yeah, and it's designed by Orica. Of course, they're using the Orica. They're using the Orica chassis as a base, and by the looks of it, they've also unveiled their full-scale prototype, the team identity, including livery and race suits, which I have to see more of, but...
it looks great, I think.
Oh yeah, it looks beautiful. It looks absolutely beautiful. And apparently the engine that it's going to be using is a V8 twin turbo engine. I believe designed in-house
I believe so.
by Hyundai and Genesis, and also the I just love the name Magma. It just rolls off the tongue of Magma. But
Magma.
this will be coming to IMSA in 2027 and WEC in 2026. And let me just say once again, rubbing my hands together.
Good. World of Sports Cars is getting very good. They actually weren't the only ones to release a new car as well. So Porsche are going to be rolling out the Evo update for the 992 911 GT3R, starting for customers in 2026. But we won't have to wait that long to see the car in competition, because this weekend, at the time of recording on Thursday, by the way, the car will be making its competitive debut at the Michelin 12 Hours of Spa-Francorchamps for the Creventic 24 Hour Series, in the hands of Herbert Motorsport, with Lauren Heinrich, Ralph Bonn, and Alfred Rainauer behind the wheel of that car. So expect a new version of the Racing 911 next year on grids throughout the world. And that caps off the sports car news for now. We've got some feeder series. Yes, go on.
One more. It involves the pride of Guelph, Ontario, Robert Wickens.
Yes. And what have you got to say about him?
He will be heading to the Nürburgring 24 Hours.
Yes, I did see this, actually.
In a Hyundai TCR. Now, I'm not sure what his driver lineup's going to be, but let's see what I'm going to do here.
Well, I tell you what, it would. I don't know what the logistics of this would be, but I'd love to see Robert Wickens one day behind the wheel of a GMR 001. Given obviously Genesis is the Hyundai luxury brand, so there's already a connection there. So it would be good. I hope it's one day possible to see him in a top level prototype, but that of course remains to be seen.
The driver lineup has not yet been announced for the Nürburgring.
Right, but we know that Wickens is a part of it so far, so we'll see who joins
great.
that. We'll see who comes along to join. We've got some feeder series news. Who wants to quickly run us through this, because we are getting on a little bit
That's
now.
okay. I hope you don't mind. I put in a whole bunch of stuff to miscellaneous. I will skip over anything you want to, because it's basically just all of the racing I caught up on after the weekend.
I did the same. I spent basically a whole day watching racing.
Yeah. Well, I was at Snetterton, so I had to catch up on a bunch of it when I got home. But anyway, so in Formula 2, sprint Australia winner Joshua Dirksen was disqualified from P3 in the sprint race due to a technical infringement on the diffuser. This meant that Pepe Marti was able to go through and win from P11 on the grid. That was actually nothing at all to do with Joshua Dirksen's disqualification. I'm just trying to link this all together as I'm reading it, and it's not working. But yeah, what an amazing drive from Pepe Marti. In the feature race, Alex Dunn won the race to much hype, partly because he is Irish and there are not many Irish top-level drivers at the current point in time. So a lot of people, especially Irish people, are going crazy over Alex Dunn. Lucy as well, Last Lap Lucy has interviewed Alex Dunn in the past, so she's been very happy about all of this. But yeah. So Alex Dunn won the feature race. Unfortunately, he had a really tough sprint race. He caused quite a few incidents and got a couple of penalties. But I think his feature race kind of makes up for that. Meanwhile, reigning F3 champion Leo Fornaroli finished third, keeping up his streak of leading championships with no wins. If anyone doesn't know, Fornaroli amazingly won the Formula 3 championship last year without a single victory to his name. It's unbelievable when that kind of thing happens. And this year, he is, after just 3 races, leading the Formula 2 championship, again, with 0 wins. Could you imagine if he wins Formula 2 without ever having won a race in the feeder series? That would be unbelievable. But yes.
I'd say that
Formula
was impossible,
3,
but I'd say that
it is
was
technically
impossible,
possible.
but he's done it.
Yeah, it is technically possible.
That it sounds like the type of challenge that a Formula One YouTuber would do. It's like, can I win the championship with no wins? But this guy's doing it for real life. We really do live in a simulation, don't we?
Yes.
He only finished second twice last year, so only 2 second places, 0 wins, and he was still consistent enough to win the championship. That's unbelievable. But yeah,
that's incredible.
That's just unreal. Quickly, Formula 3 was also there at Bahrain. Red Bull Junior Nikita Solov won the sprint race, but the biggest star was Rafael Kamara, who won the feature race for the 2nd event in a row. I would say keep your eye on Rafael Kamara. I think he's the reigning Formula Regional champion, unless I'm very much mistaken. I will look that up quickly. But yes, having watched the highlights from both of the F3 rounds so far, I really think that Rafael is driving maturely, and at his stage in his career, I think that's what you have to look out for. And yes, he is the reigning Formula Regional European champion. The next step up, of course, is Formula 3. He hasn't been doing quite so well in the sprints. I think he's had a little bit of bad luck, but his feature race results are making up for it, and he now leads that championship.
Fantastic. Should we move on to where do we want to go next? Where would you like to go next?
Let's go to Australian supercars.
Yes, I like referencing midweek motorsport. This show is clearly not inspired by that in any way. So we had a couple of races from New Zealand over the weekend as well. The only time that supercars are set to cross the pond this year. So Matt Payne made it 2 out of 3, with Chaz Wostert winning the other race in what was quite a hectic couple of races from New Zealand. And Will Brown didn't have the greatest of weekends, which means that his championship lead has been weakened somewhat. So it'll be interesting to see where the rest of the Supercars series goes for this year.
All right, let's move on. I'm gonna do MotoGP, NASCAR, and NHRA. Marc Marquez has won again. He has won now 3 out of the 4 races for the year, having won all 4 poles, all 4 fastest laps, and all 4 sprint race victories. And something about Alex Marquez, Caitlin?
Yeah, he had a little collision with both Mark and Fabio Di Giannantonio. There you go.
Again?
Sorry. Did I?
Italian noises are happening.
I messed that up in the last episode too, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a terrible time, but somehow still managed to come home in 7th position. Very lucky not to take out his brother very early on in the race. That would have been quite something. But yeah, absolute domination for Marc Marquez. The final result was Marquez first, Bagnaia second. So I tell you what, Ducati is unstoppable right now. Mm-hmm. And Franco Morbidelli in 3rd position.
In the 3rd Ducati, I believe, yeah?
I can't remember. It's not a factory Ducati.
It's the private Ducati, yeah.
I don't know enough about MotoGP to know what he's on. But yes, he's on a Ducati as well.
Yeah. Turning to NASCAR, Kyle Larson actually swept both races at Bristol, dominating the Xfinity race on Saturday, and then translating that over to Sunday, where he led 411 of 500 laps to win at Bristol.
And it was boring.
It was definitely a race of all time, yes. He
I
won
love Bristol, but this one was pretty dull. Sorry.
Yeah. He won over Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs, finishing in 3rd. And turning to NHRA quickly, and this was actually quite an interesting one, and this is why I put this in here. A man named Tony Stewart, the Rushville Rocket,
whoa,
as it were, who has won pretty much anything he parks his backside into, won his first NHRA Top Fuel victory at the 4-Wide Nationals at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This, I believe, is actually his... because he won the alcohol dragster... the alcohol fuel dragster championship last year in one of the support series to NHRA. He won this time his very first professional Wally in the sport, and and other winners: Austin Prock driving for John Force in Funny Car, and Dallas Glenn in Pro Stock.
Do we want to cover GPVWC, or are we going to cover that next week?
GPWC was really good. We had the Japanese Grand Prix. Loic Mounier took the lead on the penultimate lap of the race to win his first GPWC Grand Prix. Obviously, I mentioned Loic in the last episode because he got his first podium at the previous Grand Prix, the Turkish Grand Prix. But yeah, he overcame Jan Grankvist, who still brought it home in second place. And I really think that there is a championship fight brewing, which should be absolutely fantastic to see, especially since it was so unexpected. You know, Jan, after the first 2 races of the year, it looked as if he was going to run away with it. And to see someone completely out of the blue, like Loic Mounier, turning up and fighting with him is actually really promising. And also Shimon Frelich came third to become the third brand new podium finisher in 3 races at the start of the season. So GPWC, very, very exciting. For those who don't know, it is the main sim racing championship that I commentate. And on Thursday, we are doing the Saudi Grand Prix from Jeddah, which is where Jan Grankvist got his first victory last year. So let's see how this goes this year.
We're getting on a bit now, so we'll leave lists of comments till the next episode of the show, and that is it.
First of all, I just want to say we need to have Robin Tails Fighter on the show. He's
There's a comment there.
He's made an comment.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that on the next week's episode of the show, but we have gotten on. Thank you very much for staying till the end of this episode, if you have done so. My name has been Jack McKenzie, and joining me on the mic, as usual, has been the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Do everything you need to do on YouTube and Spotify to make this show popular, and we'll keep making them for you. Anyway, that's us. Like, subscribe. See you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ra.